All right, what's up, boxing fans? It's Aztec 101 in the ring. Trying out this live situation again. I had a lot of fun doing it. Spent 2 hours on this thing, and it flew by. Honestly, I didn't expect myself to sit down and get so many questions, but I liked it. I think it helps my videos push forward or move forward. Sometimes I get stuck rambling, and getting the questions, getting all that helps the conversation move forward, and I like it. But what I really wanted to get into in this video is I saw 78 Sports TV, and he was talking about the winner of Crawford and Ndongo. From his perspective, is number one pound for pound, and I guess the reasoning behind that, and if you guys agree with it, I need help trying to understand what he's saying, because from what I got, it's the winner of Crawford and Ndongo. Since there's no other champions left, there's no question on who is the best in that division. So if Crawford wins, he's number one pound for pound. If Ndongo wins, he's number one pound for pound. And I have a hard time with that. And mind you, I understand the whole concept of pound for pound, and I know that it depends on who you're asking. Everyone has their own. They all have their own variables that they take into account when coming up with a pound for pound list. But for the most part, we all have a universal understanding of how it works, and that's why we have pound for pound debates, things like that. Just the question is that, do you guys agree? Does right now, Undisputed, does that mean pound for pound? Will that equal to the number one pound for pound, whoever becomes undisputed? And this is the only fight available right now that we're going to get an undisputed champion in. Can't really argue with it, I guess. Well, I feel like I can argue with it. Did Costa Zoo become number one pound for pound when he became undisputed? Bernard Hopkins, when he became undisputed, did he become number one pound for pound because of that? Right. Red Fox, what's up, man? Glad you're here. So, you made a very, very good point. Pound for pound has to do with skill, perception. So, I don't think becoming undisputed makes a big impact on it. That's what Red Fox said. And I agree, man. I agree. The belts don't have, there's a lot of people that would put, ask anyone their top 10 pound for pound, and then and you start realizing it has nothing to do with the belts. A lot of people have Guillermo Rigondeaux as, top 5 pound for pound, but he's nowhere near unifying any of the belts in his division. And he's not showing any effort to try to fight any of the guys in his division, right? But you can respect his position on a pound for pound list based on his skill level and what we've seen. Even though, I guess the undisputed rule doesn't apply to him, but it'll apply to Crawford and Ndongo. Usually when you have a rule and it makes sense, it applies everywhere. You know what I mean? It should be pretty universal. You should be able to just place that on anything. And it doesn't make sense to me, but let's see. Only one fighter has unified 4 belts. Hopkins. Let's see. And he was pound for pound number 1 at some point. So it would be more of an accomplishment than past undisputed champs. Well, I mean, Bernard Hopkins might have been ranked pound for pound number 1, but it wasn't a cause and effect because of becoming undisputed. It wasn't through becoming undisputed that he become number one. And you know, that's kind of one of the things that you end up looking at with Crawford and Ndongo, is that you got two guys fighting each other. One of them is Terrence Crawford, who's had, you know, fights with Gamboa, Postol. You know, he had his last fight with Diaz. He's fighting Olympic gold medalists. He's got names on his resume, right? So if he wins and he becomes undisputed, there's little room to argue that Crawford is number one pound for pound, right? So from Crawford's point of view, it kind of makes sense a little bit. But from Ndongo's point of view, who hasn't really fought anybody, and this is going to be the first guy he fights, and if he potentially wins, is that enough to make him number one pound for pound? Is that all that Ndongo needs? Is just Crawford, and that's it? While you have all the other guys around you that are fighting multiple times a year against high-level competition, and Ndongo can just take that throne with one fight. Right. Red Fox, another good one. Yeah, I mean, the longest reigning number one pound for pound that we've had in the most recent years was Floyd Mayweather. And yeah, absolutely. He didn't need to unify any of the titles to become the pound for pound number one fighter in the world. And two, did he really need all the belts to prove that he was the best in his division? You know, think about it. Let's see here. Ndongo could become undisputed in 9 months. Yeah, he could. He could very well become undisputed. I guess the question is, with that undisputed, title, does that automatically mean that you're number one pound for pound? You know, does that allow Ndongo to leap over some of the other fighters that have been doing more? So, you know, let's say I were to put together, you know, Ndongo and Keith Thurman, right? You know, who's proven themselves the most? Is it Ndongo or Keith Thurman? And should Ndongo, with this one fight, be able to leap over everything Thurman has done? Let's see here. Right, and it all exactly. So Marvin Gardens, I agree with you. It really does depend on the division. You know, he said in his comment, I think the undisputed champ at 147 or 115 would have a better argument. 140 just seems pretty weak. And that's very, very true. It really does depend on how strong the division is. You know, I always gave Triple G a lot of shit because, yes, he was following the rules of engagement when people want to see unified titles. So he's unifying the titles. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's fighting his number one contenders. There's no problem with that. But I always made a point that he's dominating in a weak division. You know, and it made a lot of sense to a lot of people. But now we have to look at other divisions that are just as weak. Floyd was undisputed until he retired. Then he fought Marquez after the only bums aside from Maidana and watched the Pacquiao. A boxing fan, I think I'm 100% sure that Floyd has never unified all the titles. He's never unified all the titles in any of the divisions that he fought in. You know, there was always a lingering title. Yeah, yeah, no question about it. See, boxing fan, you're making a very good point, and he fought the best. So a lot of the times, the best that he fought were either not in his division, you know, or B, and that's not a bad thing. I'm saying he would fight guys that were bigger than him. He would fight guys that would potentially fight at 154. So he stretched himself thin, and he fought names. He fought some big names. Um, but he never became undisputed, right? But he was ranked number one pound for pound. So does Crawford or Ndongo need to be undisputed to be ranked number one pound for pound, or vice versa? Just because they're undisputed, does that necessarily mean that they're number one pound for pound? You know what I mean? Right. Pacquiao's never cleaned out a division either. Um, and he's always been ranked neck and neck with Floyd Mayweather. So a lot of and you know what? Maybe this is where a lot of the energy is coming from that era, from that situation, where you had these lingering titles and these champions that were just not going to meet together. So I get the energy that guys like 78 and Blood Boxing are coming from, where they would rather see the division unify their titles and see the champions be willing to fight each other, right? But it's a lot easier to do that in a division where you got Crawford, who's building his name, and he's proven. And then you got Ndongo, who's got nothing to lose. I mean, he's not a big name yet. He has an opportunity to prove himself. And this is going to be probably one of the biggest and only opportunities that he can get. So you might as well hold on to it while it's there. So, obviously, there's really nothing to lose on Ndongo's part. There's no benefit for him to hold on to his two titles and fight number one contenders and try to make it difficult for Crawford to unify. Ndongo won't benefit from that. He's not making a lot of money with any other fighter other than Crawford. So, this is the fight that you got to take now while you're healthy. So he's got nothing to lose. Some situations are not the same, and you got different situations in different divisions. And each fighter is doing something different. So let me see. Whoever wins will either get stripped or vacated anyway. Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They don't, these, having 5 number one contenders, there's not enough months in the year for you to fit in the amount of fights that you have to do so you can successfully defend every title on time when you're supposed to. You know what I mean? And then, and here's the thing. I mean, just because, and here's another thing. Let's say Crawford versus Ndongo, right? We'll stick to that right now. So Crawford versus Ndongo, let's say they fight. It doesn't matter who wins, either Crawford or Ndongo. Does that automatically mean that they are, without a shadow of a doubt, the best in their division? So when you have guys like Adrian Broner, Mikey Garcia still lingering around, you got some of the fighters that had just recently moved up from 140 and they're at 147. Does that mean that you're the best in that division? No, you still got fights to make, right? Ndongo makes good money because the currency in Nambia is low. Right. Possibly. I mean, I guess good money, it really depends. Good money depending if he was fighting back in Nambia and getting paid in Nambia currency. Yeah, he's going to make more money fighting, contenders here in the United States or maybe in Europe. Obviously, yeah, he'll make money. But It also costs a lot of money to travel and to take your crew and be in another country, and you still have to handle the finances at home. So money wears thin. So he's gonna still need a good paycheck, and the best way to get that started really to be with the Crawford fight. So he would not be able to benefit of holding on to those two titles and just taking care of mandatories and maybe a tune-up fight here and there, and then stretching it out. It wouldn't work. There's no room to build this fight. This is the type of fight you do it now before Ndongo loses the title to someone, or he decides to move up, or you don't know what could happen. So this is really the time to do it for Ndongo. Let's see here. Crawford is technically better than Thurman and Spence Jr. He could become pound for pound. Crawford technically better than Thurman. Yeah, I would say that. I would agree with you. I think he's fundamentally sound, but that doesn't always mean that you're the better fighter. Sometimes there's other instincts, other qualities that a fighter has that isn't necessarily, based on the technicality or their fundamentals. Sometimes one thing with Thurman is that he's a very awkward fighter. He's very awkward. And he's proven that he's been able to beat the top guys, not just in his division, but also the division below him. And, he's just done more to prove himself. So as of right now, I have Keith Thurman as a better fighter than Crawford. Right. Red Fox. Not every guy with the belt is good. Exactly. Not every guy with the belt is good. And, Ndongo having these two titles, it doesn't mean that at 140 it's up to these two guys and that's it. It doesn't mean that. And here's the thing too, like here's another thing. What are we gonna do with some of these guys that aren't close to unifying titles when they're in a position where they really should be unifying? So let's talk a little bit about Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux is in a position where his division has 5 champions, probably more, right? Rigondeaux's got the WBA super champion, right? But then you got Sean Kubel, who's got the WBA regular champion. Jesse Magdaleno is WBO. Ray Vargas is WBC. Yukinori Oguni is IBF, right? So there's around 5 guys around Rigondeaux. Do we put him in a position where now I'm just asking, I guess if you run your pound for pound list and you have that mentality that, well, the undisputed automatically means number 1 pound for pound. Well, if that's the case, then would you guys rank the winner of Golovkin-Canelo above Rigo? Because Rigo would have less titles than either of these guys, Would you rank Thurman above Rigo because Rigo currently has 2 titles? While Thurman has 2 titles while Rigo only has 1. So it's kind of one of those things where once you start breaking it down and you start asking these questions, you realize, yeah, there's room to argue it. And Rigo's in an interesting position right now because I get where a lot of boxing fans are going with it. They want to see this big fight, and Lomachenko really is a big fight. It would be not probably. I'm not monetizing it, so I'm not talking about how much it'll gain financially. I'm talking about just how big it would be for either of their resumes. I mean, for Lomachenko to come in and have a fight with Rigo and win, that would be great for his career. And the same thing with Rigo. If Rigo is able to close off his career by defeating Lomachenko, that will, I think, leave an imprint, bigger than if Rigo tried going for all 4 belts. So I kind of get it. I get it. Names matter. And they matter more than the belts. But it's funny how, depending on the fighter and depending on the division, we have different standards for these guys. Let me look at the comments. A boxing fan. That's why MMA is getting more exposure. That probably that. Good point. I'm gonna get back to that one because I want to talk about that. Good point. Burns. Burns and Troy was a good win. Burns and Troy was a good win, but Burns had just lost to Figueroa at 147, and for some reason he was able to lose a couple times, lost to Crawford, Figueroa, won a few fights, and then all of a sudden gets the title. It seems a little set up for Ndongo to get his hands on that title. It just seems like it was either going to be Ndongo or Troy. So it was going to either be Ndongo or Troy, and Crawford was, even if Crawford fought Troy, that's I would say it's the same thing, Let's see here. Does anyone even consider Ndongo number 2 at 140? None of the rankings have him there. Marvin Gardens, no, I don't. I don't. The only reason why 2 should be near Ndongo is because that's how many belts he has. But as far as ranked, out of all the fighters at 140, no. Why? Haven't heard much complaint or roadblocks at 154 when the Charler brothers and Lara were there. I didn't hear, where was this energy about unifying at 154? 154 was fucking literally stacked. You think about the great fights that you would have just between these guys. Lara and both Charlo brothers, you got Trout, you got, and then you had some of the Herd, some of the other guys coming up, J-Rock. If the titles were being unified, you could literally have all 3 belts, not just with Al Heyman, but under one fighter, and there's no urgency there. No one's asking for it. Everyone's sitting down waiting, and I think everyone's waiting for Canelo. I think they're waiting for Canelo. Let's see. Boxing fan. Troy is a bum that held a belt. Right. And I can see why you would say that, because he lost to Ndongo. And Ndongo was ranked number 15. He wasn't even supposed to win that fight. He lost to a cherry pick. So, is it safe to say that Troy, isn't there's, I don't know if I'll go as far as calling him a bum, but yeah, you'd have a good argument. But the thing is what you want and what you hope Ndongo is to what he really is something that, I guess we can only find out from this fight. But based on one fight, I can't have him leap over, especially when I'm thinking pound for pound. I'm thinking everyone in boxing. I can't have Ndongo leap over everyone else who's doing 10 times more than what Ndongo has done. Ndongo still has a future in front of him, so he can definitely build a number one pound for pound type record if he beats Crawford and continues winning. But just beating Crawford won't be enough for me. I mean, I think it'll definitely raise awareness on who Ndongo is, but it's not going to launch him to number one pound for pound status. Let's see. Hey, Zapata Boxing. What's up, man? Let's see. Davis dodging Vasil. Another unification roadblock. Well, I can understand a little bit of where Davis, where his position is. You know, he's in a position where he doesn't want to take that risk too soon. And that is a reality with some of these young fighters. I'm sure Davis is thinking, like, I can beat Lomachenko. I got him. I can beat him. But he has to work his way up there. I think he needs just a few more fights. He is in a building stage where, he can be a really, really good fighter, You just don't want him to end up getting this fight a little too soon. And there's a point where there's so much hype behind him that with this loss, people stop thinking about him. And that's how we are in America. We have ADD when it comes to these fighters. We completely lose interest as soon as they lose. As soon as they lose, we wipe them off. So there's, boxing promoters, and especially Floyd Mayweather, understands the importance right now with, the mentality of the boxing fan that currently watches boxing. They don't want to see a particular fighter lose. And if he loses too soon, there's not enough diehard fans for that fighter. He didn't have enough time to create or generate that kind of fan base. So they're not going to stick with him. They'll leave him out to dry. Davis knows he's not ready for Vasil yet. Right. I get it. There's no urgency right now from the fan base that, are begging for unifications. There's no one applying pressure to Davis to unify. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's happening in a lot of divisions. I'm telling you, UK fans don't want to see Anthony Joshua fight Deontay Wilder. They can be all about unifications until you start talking about that fight. Then they're like, oh, wait, what has Wilder done? Ward is showing no interest to fight Stevenson. Ward's a funny character, man. He's a funny character. I think he's got 1 foot in boxing and 1 foot out. I don't think he's interested in doing that. Why would he? He's not undisputed, and a lot of people put Andre Ward as number one pound for pound. You know what I mean? It goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Does that really lead to a pound for pound status? And we're just seeing examples of how it doesn't. Andre Ward being one of those examples. I mean, a lot of people had no problem calling him pound for pound, and he hasn't fought Adonis Stevenson. And there's really very little pressure for them to fight. And you had Andre Ward already talking about retirement before fighting Kovalev. And as much as, maybe people might think, well, that was just mind games or whatever, I think there's a little bit of truth to what Ward was talking about. He wants to quit. He wants to stop boxing. Not necessarily quit, but he wants to retire, Hey, boxing fan. All right. I want to ask you about Loma. Everybody hyping him up, but don't get me wrong. He is very good. But how can people say pound for pound won with only 10 bouts? That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think I think with Lomachenko, there's the argument that he only has 10 bouts. He already has a loss. Um, you know, there's arguments that are reasonable that explain, why he would be number one pound for pound. But I get what you're saying. There's a lot of other fighters out there that have done a lot more than Lomachenko, and they're not ranked as high. How many fights did it take fucking Chocolatito before he got noticed? How many fucking fights did it take Chocolatito before he got noticed? He literally racked up almost a resume that you could retire with before even getting noticed. And you got Lomachenko automatically. Here's the thing, man. One, everyone that's with HBO, nearly everyone, is going to be on the top 10 pound for pound so far. Right? Lomachenko, Canelo, Triple G, Andre Ward, Kovalev. All these guys are going to be. So when you look at the HBO pound for pound list, don't get it twisted, man. It is a marketing scheme. They're just trying to show you that, hey, all the top fighters in the world are with us. They're not going to put Arizona Lara up there. Some people have, either the Charlos on their pound for pound list. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see Keith Thurman up there. Red Fox, because pound for pound is based on skill. Even when Rigo had little fights, or about the same as Vasyl Lomachenko, he was being brought up in the pound for pound discussion. Rigo's another fighter that you can say, yeah, he's got more fights than Lomachenko, but let's be honest, Lomachenko has more names on his resume than Rigo somehow. Right? Like, isn't that a little odd? The only person that you can really name on Rigo's resume that's worth mentioning is Nonito Donaire. Lomachenko, you can talk about Gary Russell Jr., Nicholas Walters, right? Even the last guy he fought, Mariaga. Mariaga was worth something when he was fighting Walters. Now all of a sudden he's worthless. I don't think that's how things should go. His name still holds weight. But with Rigo, he's already been given this status of top 5 pound for pound, and the reasoning behind it is because he has this amateur pedigree, right? So, I guess a lot of people feel like, hey, if we were able to do that with Rigo, why can't we do that with Lomachenko, who also has a amateur pedigree and he's taking on big fights? Let's see here. Lomachenko, pound for pound number 1 is just hype, but he definitely has potential to become number 1 in the future. Right. Yeah, a lot of that is hype. A lot of it is hype, We're perceiving that he's that good, like he's the best in the world, right? But we don't really know yet. He still needs to fight. He can take another loss. Chocolatito was already arguably the best 108 fighter of all time, or at least the hardest puncher. Yeah, and one of the biggest things with Chocolatito is that by the time he actually got to the pound for pound list, it got to the point where there was already eyes on Andre Ward and Crawford. So as soon as he lost, man, Andre Ward, boom, shot right above him immediately. Now you don't even see Chocolatito on people's pound for pound lists. Even though, when we're talking about making history, it's not just about Undisputed. He made his name as, like you said, the hardest puncher at 108 pounds, the best fighter at minimum weight, It's a feat worth talking about. Insane Fighter, what's up, man? Glad you're here. Let's see. So, so I have a question for you guys. If Guillermo Rigondeaux cannot get the fight with Lomachenko, what should he do? You know, because one thing I'm seeing is that Lomachenko right now has options. If he really wanted to, I mean, would anyone blame him for taking the Mikey Garcia fight over Rigondeaux? I don't think anybody would blame him. Let's see here. I'm going to answer this question right here. Boxing fan. Aztec, I want to ask you about Salido. I feel sometimes he looks like he can beat everybody, but then sometimes he's being beat so easy. I thought highly about him, but I feel he ain't put the work in. Salido is one of those old school fighters, man. He's fighting consistently. Look at his resume, man. He's probably one of the most active fighters out there. I mean, this guy's constantly putting on fights, and he fights hard. You know, there's only so much a fighter can take, and he really does go in there and takes a lot of punishment, gives a lot of punishment, but he takes a lot too. So there's a good chance that you know he's not where he used to be. He's not moving like he used to. He's probably fighting through injuries. It is what it is with Salido. There's a reason why he's trying to get his money's worth with Lomachenko. There's no reason for him to go in there and fight Lomachenko. He already beat him. So if he's going to do that, if he's going to take that fight, he wants to get paid. And he should. He should. They shouldn't rob him. He's been putting on great shows. You know, Top Rank has used him to fight a lot of their fighters. So, you know, pay him what he's worth, man. He's worth it. Let's see here. Guillermo Rigondeaux should fight the winner of Magdaleno versus Juarez. Good fight, absolutely. Or Vargas versus Rios. He needs to move up or forget about Loma. He's a small dude who's not willing to challenge himself. Yeah, you know, I don't see it, man. I don't see him challenging himself. And you know what's funny, too, is that he's now with his new promoter. What is it? Jay-Z's company. Fuck, I forgot the name. But he's with them now. And they haven't really been building him up. I mean, I haven't seen anything different. He's still kind of barely fighting. I think he just fights enough to pay his mortgage. You know, he'll pay his property taxes or whatever, has enough money left over for food and electricity, and then that's it. I think he lives paycheck to paycheck, or he's saving up his money, or he's probably doing something else, because he's not fighting like as if he was the best in his division. He's not calling out these guys. He's focused on Lomachenko. There's 5 different champions around him, and he's not mentioning one of them. You know, you're hiring a marketing team. Obviously, you have a marketing team working for you, handling all your tweets and your Instagram posts. So, you know, you have professionals working with you. I mean, I would think that you would have a meeting with them and say, hey, how about you send out a couple posts and let's talk about Magdaleno. Let's call him out. You know? Let's call out Ray Vargas. You know? Let's call out Oguni. Let's see here. Yeah, Salido doesn't get enough credit. Absolutely. He's he's just a tough fighter. He's one of those old school fighters. He goes in there and he does what he has to do, you know? He's the type of fighter that you know, you can put him on any card against anybody, and you know you're going to get a good fight. Win or lose, people are going to love him. Yeah, you know, it's about time that he forgets about Frampton, Quigg, Santa Cruz. Rigo needs to forget about these guys. I think it's funny, man, that he's the type of guy that he's gonna stay put, but he's gonna talk mad shit. He's not gonna. If he really wants it, you would think he would follow you around, right? Go around, start following you around, follow Leo to his new division or Quig, or move up to where Lomachenko's at. You would think he would do these things, but he's not. He's not. It's kind of like Lara when he was calling out Triple G. I give Triple G fans a lot of shit for not accepting the Lara fight. But I got to be honest with you. Lara wasn't showing me that he really wanted the fight to begin with. If he wanted that fight, he could have very well done a fight with Danny Jacobs. They're both with Al Heyman. It's an in-house fight. You want to move up to 160? You could have fought Daniel Jacobs. You could have fought Kid Chocolate. You could have fought someone. But, talking, sending out tweets, that can't be the new representation of the Cuban school of boxing. Like, really, the Cuban school of boxing is now Twitter wars. That's not a good look. Not a good look. I feel like Salido should just fight other dudes, get more wins, then fight Loma. Then he can get leverage. Yeah, Salido, he can fight whoever the fuck he wants. He doesn't have to fight, Lomachenko. He doesn't have to. He already won. And I'm sure he's willing to fight Lomachenko. He just wants to get paid, Pay me. Let's see here. Yeah. Ortiz is different. The big man Ortiz, man, that fool, he's trying to make the most of his situation. He's trying to make the most of his situation. He got Al Heyman for a reason, He really wants to make things work. But Lara and Rigo, who are arguably pound for pound just way better than Ortiz, and they can literally, they can be one of the best. These two guys can be the top two if they really proved it, if they wanted to prove it. But I think they're just happy living the American dream, Rigo gets paid $200,000, $250,000 per fight. He fights once, twice a year. It's against a nobody. He'll get paid fat for no reason. He'll do a little fight here and there. Make about $500,000 a year. He's not struggling. Why would he take that risk at his age to fight, any of the top contenders? He's not showing me that he wants to prove that he's the best. So it's very hard for me to give Rigo that much credit when you got guys like Lomachenko with less fights, obviously taking on risks. Let's see here. What do you guys think about Cotto and Kamagai? We got that fight coming up. Cotto Kamagai. I think Cotto is going to be one of the next ones to retire after this fight. I think, we got Klitschko, Timothy Bradley, Marquez. They've all retired. And I think this might be Cotto's going away fight. Oh, yeah, it's going to be action-packed for sure, man. It's going to be action-packed. Cherry picking for Cotto. I think I can see why you would say that, boxing fan. But, I understand that he hasn't fought since the Canelo fight, man. It's been a few years. He hasn't fought since the Canelo fight. I think that's worth having a tune-up, So if this is somewhat of a tune-up for him to fight someone else, I mean, why not? But then again, what kind of expectations do we have for Cotto? Do we really expect him to take on the best at 154? Do we expect him to fight, Jermell, Hurd, right? Andrade? Kamagai is easy to beat if Cotto keeps moving. I think Kamagai is the type of guy that can make the fight ugly. He's sort of like a Salido, a little bit. A little bit. Not as sharp. Not as sharp, but as far as willingness to exchange, absolutely. Kamagai will he'll make the fight fun. Definitely will be a fun fight. But Cotto is definitely gonna win that fight. I think he's gonna beat the shit out of him. Let's see here. Where's that Puerto Rican pride they're always talking about? Well, Cotto's kind of fallen off, I think Puerto Rican fans are looking towards other fighters, trying to find that other fighter that can replace Cotto. But, yeah, I mean, I think Cotto's going to retire, bro. I really don't think there's anything much else to expect from him. I really think that, what does he have to prove? Really? What does he have to prove? He earned his middleweight title. He broke some kind of record doing that. I don't know if he was the first Puerto Rican to become middleweight. I don't know what it was, but he made history doing that, becoming a middleweight champion. He fought Canelo, made good money. He was the A side, so he made most of the money in that fight. Took a break for a few years. Now he's fighting Kamagai. I don't see this being, he's no longer with his promotional company now. I guess he's separated and he's doing this on his own. I think he's stepping away from boxing, man. I think he's going to retire. Verdejo and Angel Costa. Cotto's promoting these guys? I didn't know that. Yeah, Cotto's moving on. I think he's making moves so that way he can step away from boxing. Yeah, Puerto Rico is a little dry right now, man. They're not holding too many titles. I don't think they have a title at all. They'll get one though, for sure. Cotto versus um, Margarito, right? Cotto looked like a beat up wife. Yeah. There's a lot of different cheaters, man. Different people get different attention. Cotto was kind of like, a media darling. So when Margarito was caught with the hand wraps, the loaded hand wraps, that looked terrible. You beat up a guy that people really like, and you did it in a way where you're cheating. So Margarito, he pretty much got ran out of boxing for that. A lot of fighters have been known to cheat. Shane Mosley, wasn't he caught for taking performance PEDs, right? There's just there's a lot of stuff. The fighters, and Mosley also fought Cotto. Let me see. Yeah, Cotto took a lot of damage in that fight, man. He took a lot of damage against Margarito, and he took a lot of damage in his fight against Pacquiao too. He's gone through a lot. I don't think there's anything left for Cotto to prove. I think it's okay if he retires. Um, there's a lot of talk about Manny Pacquiao being a cheater, you know? But yeah, I agree with Red Fox. Um, there's no proof that he's cheated. And I think that by this time, I think we would have figured something out. There's been a lot of fighters that have been caught. You know, there's a lot of fighters that get caught without taking the Olympic testing. They've been caught for PEDs. Just because you're not taking Olympic testing doesn't mean that you can't get caught for performance enhancing drugs. There's still a good chance that that these guys can still get caught using other organizations. But there's a lot of people saying Floyd Mayweather cheated. There's a lot of people saying that he was injecting his hands with that numbing agent. There's a lot of people saying that Mayweather is taking PEDs now because they base, a few photos that they saw. And I think that he's taking, there's always talk about performance-enhancing drugs or some shit. Here's the thing, that the hand wrap thing was on another level. I think that was an ugly way to win a fight. And, yeah, Margarito, that's why his name is Margachito. Because, he's just, he can't live that down. I don't think there's any way for him to come back to boxing without people bringing that up. But Cotto got his way with him on the second fight. He was able to get revenge. And it just made the story much better. I mean, it was like a fucking soap opera. The face-off between them when they were talking about, the face-off with Max Kellerman. That was a really, really good face-off. Where he called him out. He's like, look, I have the photo right here. This is your hand wrap. Let's see here. Yeah, Xylocaine. Floyd's talked about it, man. Floyd's talked about it. It's already been something that's been, on people's radar for a long time. Some people will argue. I remember Carcino used to argue all the time about Xylocaine. Well, it's not like it makes you hit harder. And the point of it, I guess, if you can use a numbing agent, I mean, it will make you hit harder. You will purposely hit harder because your hand's not going to hurt. Some people hold back punches, If you're trying to land a punch, and if you can pull it back just before it lands on someone's forehead, you will. Because that'll hurt your hand. If there's any way that you throw a jab and it's going towards their forehead, and you know that's just going to fucking hurt, you're going to try to, draw it back a little bit. But if you got a numbing agent on there and you don't feel shit, fuck it. You fucking unload on the forehead. Yeah. Carcino made his whole boxing channel off Floyd Mayweather. As soon as Floyd Mayweather retired, he stopped talking boxing. So there you go. Everyone was calling him a Flomo. Everyone was telling him that, the only reason why he's talking boxing is because of Floyd. And he used to deny it. No, I'm a diehard boxing fan. As soon as Floyd retired, he stopped talking boxing. And now he lists like top 10 rappers or something, whatever. Yeah, yeah. Xylocaine is legal in Vegas. Yes, yes. You can still break your hand. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's not gonna make your bones stronger. It'll just make your resistance to pain stronger. And that's the thing. If you land a punch and you're hurt, if you hurt your hand, you're gonna fight differently. And if you don't have to do that, that's kind of like avoiding running out of breath. If there was something that you could take where you're not running out of breath, where normally, you know, you would be tired and exhausted, but if there's something that you can take where you no matter what happens, no matter how fast your heart's beating, no matter what your blood pressure is, your breath is going to be fine. You're never going to run out of breath. I mean, that would be useful. And it's kind of like one of those endurance supplements where it's like, having xylocaine in your hand, it can help you in a fight. Abner Mars versus Santa Cruz. I think Santa Cruz beat him convincingly in the first fight. I don't think there's anything different that Abner Mars can do. Santa Cruz really has the advantage when it comes to the arm reach, and he's the most active puncher in the game right now. He doesn't stop throwing punches. He throws the most punches in boxing. It's very, very hard to fight Leo Santa Cruz. A lot of people were saying that Guillermo Rigondeaux would easily outclass Leo Santa Cruz, and it's one of those things where it's he could outclass Leo, absolutely, but it won't be easy. It won't be easy. And if there is someone that can beat Leo, it would be someone like Rigo. And Abner Mares is not that kind of fighter. I don't think he moves as well. I don't think he's going to be. He stands in front of Leo Santa Cruz. This is what happened in the first fight. He stood in front of Leo Santa Cruz. He exchanged punches with him, and Leo always landed more in every exchange. And that was just because he was letting his hands go, and he can throw more punches at a faster rate than Abner Mares. And that's it. Abner Mares' game plan wasn't to box, and even if he went in there and tried to box, he's still fighting an uphill battle. Yeah, that was a good win. The Mares win was a very good win. You think Abner Mares is gonna fight on the inside this time? You know what? That might be his best way to approach this fight. If Abner Mares can fight like the smaller guy and get on the inside, push him up against the ropes, and leave the fight on the edge of the ring, not in the center of the ring, along the ropes in the corner. If he can keep the fight there, I think he can stop Santa Cruz's punch output, and he might be able to smother him and just do some dirty work on the inside, make the fight ugly. I think that yeah, if he does that, he could come out with a win. And Abner Mares, he has some dog in him, so he can do that if that's the strategy they're walking in with. But it all depends on what his coaches prepared him for. Oh, Mayorga. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, most people don't even know the type of shit he was talking. He was saying some fucking ruthless shit. He's the type of guy that'll stand in front of you and tell you that he's gonna fuck your wife and that you're not a man. You're not a man. You're not a man. He'll tell you straight up. He was ruthless. Yeah, well, he shouldn't have won that fight, but he did. He's one of those guys that, man, he fights on pure emotion, man. Pure emotion. Honestly, if Mayorga spoke English, he would destroy Conor McGregor in the shit talking department. He would destroy him. He'll fucking call him a bitch, smoke a cigarette in his face, and then maybe throw the cigarette at him, slap him a few times. And if Conor McGregor even tried putting his hand on Mayorga's head, it would have been over. Mayorga would have killed him. Yeah. Yeah, he was ruthless. He was ruthless. Talked mad shit about Oscar De La Hoya. Talked mad shit. Oscar De La Hoya was honestly, around that time, there was a lot of people talking shit. All these fighters, they wanted to go for the throat. And Mayorga, he tried making a name for himself. He wasn't good enough to beat Oscar at all. He got fucked up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll call him a faggot real quick, man. Mayorga, one of the realest to ever do it, man. That guy. If that guy was around during social media era, man, do you know how fun it would be? Every week we probably have a new meme coming out. Him calling someone a faggot, calling someone a bitch, slapping someone, knocking out a cow. I don't know what he would do. This guy's... He's a gangster, man. He's a gangster. He's a straight up gangster. Now, we got Canelo versus Triple G coming up. Canelo versus Triple G is not getting as much attention as I wish it did. I'm noticing that, there's the Floyd Mayweather McGregor is really taking all the shine away from Canelo and Triple G, and it's a big fight. It's a big fight for boxing. Boxing fans were talking about it. They were talking about it. I mean, you would hear from everyone. D-Styles used to make so many fucking videos shitting on Canelo for not taking that fight. And as soon as a fight is announced and it happens and it's ready to go, he spends more time talking about, Conor McGregor and Paulie Malignaggi. And that's what's going on. And I see a trend with a lot of different channels. And even myself, I've been getting distracted. But I'm getting distracted with other boxing fights. But this whole Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather thing is really, man, it's taking all the shine away from Canelo Triple G. What do you guys think of Jamal's introduction to 160? His fight against Highland. Did that show us anything new? I mean, I can't blame Jamal for what happened. I don't think it was, there's anything he could do about it. He fought someone that went in there with an injury. There was nothing he could do about it. He finished the job. But, I'm wondering, is he going to wait for Canelo, or is there a good chance that he might, take on another challenge, possibly fight one of the guys that are also ranked top 5 for the WBC? Because he's got Lemieux and Jacobs ranked top 5. Charlo, Jacobs. Good fight. Charlo versus Jacobs, yeah. Who do you guys got winning that fight? I think Charlo might be able to pull it off. Jacobs, I think Jacobs will be the favorite. Absolutely. I would put my money on Jacobs, but I do think that Charlo can pull it off. if Charlo fights on the outside and he uses his reach and he keeps his distance, then yeah, I think he'll be able to win enough rounds to beat Jacobs. And Jacobs, he's got a sketchy chin, man. He's got a sketchy chin. Just because he went 12 rounds with Triple G doesn't mean that someone else in their 12-round fight can't land a big punch. Boxing fan, he could easily fight Lara. You know what? That's a good point, because Lara's been talking about moving up and fighting Triple G, and guess what? It's funny because Lara's been talking about it, and the only one that's done it is Jamal. Jamal actually moved up in weight, so got to give Jamal props for that, for doing something Lara just wouldn't do. Yeah, Jacobs, he's a big guy, strong puncher. He boxes well. He knows how to box. And he's got dog in him. He's able to fight. And this would be Jamal's toughest fight ever. I mean, I thought Jamal had a close fight with Trout. Shit, I thought Trout beat Jamal, to be honest. Charlo almost lost to Trout. Yeah, I honestly, I thought Trout won that fight. I think that, it went all 12 rounds. There was no knockdown, nothing separating both fighters. The biggest difference was that Charlo was a bigger man, so his punches just looked different. When Trout was landing his punches, they were landing sharp and clean, and they were popping. But, Charlo would throw a punch, and it would land on the shoulder, but because he's so big, it would push Trout back, and, it just looked like he was landing the bigger and more effective punches. And what's funny is that in that fight, I was talking about how big he was. And, people complain about that. I was talking about how he looked big. And sure enough, he drops his title and moves up to middleweight. So, I know some people are upset that I'm bringing up that Charlo's big for 160. But last time I said he was big for his division, I was right. Yeah, I think that Jacobs that fought Triple G, if he fights anyone, he can beat him. He has to duplicate that kind of performance. I think that if he fights like that, except, this time, don't get knocked down. This time, don't get knocked down. Because that's a vulnerability, man. That's a vulnerability. He's been knocked down a lot of times, which is why I say his chin is a little sketchy, man. Let's see here. Well, yeah. It is true that Charlo is pretty big. I mean, so there's a good chance that he looks like he's gonna have a size advantage even at 160. That's what it looks like. What do you think about Andrade versus Charlo? I think it's good that Andrade is calling him out. Lara is not paying attention to him. And that's the fight that a lot of people wanted to see. There's a backstory to it, people want to see that fight because they fought in the amateurs. Lara already has a win against him, but I think that was in a 4 or 3 round fight. So that's much different than a 12-round championship match. And I don't see Lara doing anything better. So since he's not fighting Andrade or trying to fight Andrade, Demetrius needs to start looking for other fights. And if he's calling out Jamal, then that's a good fight for Jamal too, trying to make a name for himself. Monroe, talking about Monroe versus Saunders. Okay, yeah. Billy Joe is gonna lose to Monroe. You know what? I think I have to break down that fight, but he has a very, very good chance of beating Billy Joe Saunders. He has a very good chance of beating Billy Joe Saunders. He's sharp. He can punch. He's not the strongest puncher, but he is a big guy, and I think he's going to be able to. He won't be muscled around by Billy Joe. Billy Joe has decent footwork. The guy can move. And I like how he throws his shots. He does throw his shots in combinations, and he's pretty accurate. So Billy Joe Saunders, as much shit as I talk about, he's not a bad fighter, but Willie Monroe is a formidable opponent. I think Willie Monroe, yeah, he could definitely bring that belt to America. Billy Joe's just a paper champion. He's not a proven champion. He's definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, he's a champion, but like we were talking about earlier throughout this entire live stream, holding the belt is just one aspect to the game. I mean, the belts, they mean very little if you don't have those names underneath you. If Billy Joe Saunders had Lemieux on his resume, if he had Daniel Jacobs, Kid Chocolate, maybe even Gabriel Rosado, if he had just more notable names, respectable opponents, I don't think any one of us will be saying he's a paper champion, right? But the fact that he doesn't have it and he's been champion for so long, it makes sense. He's not a proven champion yet. He still has to show us. Billy Joe Saunders gets KO'd quick by Canelo Golovkin winner. Yeah, I think so too, man. I think so too. I think he gets KO'd quick by whoever loses between Canelo and Golovkin. Let alone whoever wins. Whoever loses will fuck him up. The inactivity, Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe plays the waiting game. He likes to play the waiting game, man. He likes to sit on that title. And while everyone else around him is moving around and getting fights and staying busy, Billy Joe Saunders is he's on the couch. That's not good. Right. Yeah, Rosado's washed up. He's a glorified gatekeeper. I guess what I meant to say is early on, especially early on in Gabe's career, if Billy Joe Saunders had fought him, that would still be a good name. I mean, he doesn't even have that. He doesn't even have a washed up Gabe Rosado. That's what I'm saying. You know. Let's see here. Tyson Fury is fucking retired. He should have retired. He should. He should. I don't think he wants to box. The guy wants to be a comedian. You know. He's he cashed out, man. He beat Klitschko and walked away. Why not? Why not? He was bound to lose to someone. He was bound to lose. So why not retire? Um, Tyson Fury is a crackhead. Yeah, man, the dude's a little off. He's a hey, you know what though, man? He did make while he was there at heavyweight, he made it interesting. He made it exciting. Um, you look forward to the press conferences with him in it. You want to hear what he has to say, and I think a lot of boxing fans like that. They want to see. That's the whole reason. He's like a Mayorga. He talks shit. He's crazy. Fury versus Wilder. That would be a great fight. Great fight. A lot of these guys don't want to fight Wilder, or at least they say they do, and then shit goes down, and the fight doesn't happen. The only fight I'm interested in at heavyweight right now is Wilder and Joshua. All right, guys. I'm gonna be heading out. Thanks for joining in. I had a lot of fun doing this. I'll probably do this again tomorrow. Shout out to everyone that participated. Marvin Gardens, Insane Fighter, boxing fan, Red Fox. You know, thank you guys. You guys made this fun, and we'll keep this up, man. Leave me a comment and let me know if there's any topics that you want to talk about. Leave a comment under this video once I upload it, so that way on the tomorrow, I could walk in with some subjects and some topics that you guys want to talk about. Other than that, man, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. This is Aztec 101. I'm out.